Hello, and welcome to the Judo Way of Life podcast. If you've been with us before, welcome back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for joining us. Today, I'll be talking with a good friend, Danny Harper. Danny is a former Great Britain representative who was a full-time athlete at Kendal Judo Club for many years. Danny is now the head coach of the Craven Judo Academy and also the area coach for the northwest of England. Hello Danny, and thank you for joining us.
Hi mate, you alright? Nice to see you.
So, how's everything going over in England at the minute?
It's pretty dire to be honest, pal. Yeah, lockdown judo is difficult for everyone involved, to be honest, Dave. It's like, you just train with us here, like the Kendal Club where we were training full time, mate, it's completely locked down. There's nothing going on at all here, really. We resigned to Zoom classes, and there's a good uptake. There's a good amount of players that are involved, the guys that are serious about it, but the guys that will just turn up every week, your little jimmies that are just there to enjoy judo on a weekly basis recreationally, they've sort of dropped off a little bit. And I don't blame them, because people come to do judo because they like the grappling aspect. Do you know what I mean? And when they're going on Zoom, as much as you can get them to fight the brothers and sisters and the mums and dads, they're a bit zoomed out with having to do it at school as well. So it's not in its best place at the moment, to be honest, but we're looking forward to it. The roadmap's out now. We should be back doing outdoor face-to-face content from the 29th of March. Hopefully the weather's going to be all right for that as well. And then we're back indoors with the under-18s from the 12th of April. And then we're looking for fulls back to normal from the 21st of June. So, yeah, that's where we're up to, really.
And just to go back to the beginning and how you got involved in judo, if you could just give us a bit of an overview of that, and then we can get back to where we are today.
Yeah, sound, mate. Yeah, it's I started when I was 6 years of age, and it was my late auntie who sadly passed with breast cancer. Well, it'll be 20 years ago now. She took me along with my cousins, and we all did it together at Kendal Judo Club at the old centre at Newing Yard. And after a few months, it was only me left doing it. Just took to it straight away. It's one of those sports. It's different to everything else that you do. You know, I was a bit of a roly-poly kid. I've gone full circle, really, if I'm honest. I've gone roly-poly, a bit of an athlete, and back to roly-poly again. But back in the day, it was like, you know, I wasn't the most talented footballer or runner or anything like that, but I could scrap and I enjoyed it. And I think that's literally what kept me in the sport, really.
Yeah, good. And in terms of your sort of progression through the sport, what was the highest level you reached?
So I got to, I was quite a good pre-cadet. I was national champion at cadet and pre-cadet, reserved for the European Cadet Championships. And then I got a medal as a junior. As I progressed into the senior sort of setup, I don't know, really. I didn't really do it. I didn't really do the business. I don't know if I fell away a little bit, maybe to do with the dieting, to be honest, and stuff like that. I enjoyed the process. Got to travel all over the world, you know what I mean? It wasn't nothing negative that way, but obviously my dreams and my goals that I set myself prior to that, I didn't really achieve them. And there's lots of different reasons for that. I look back now with fond memories, so I'm not worried about it. And I owe judo a lot because it's given me a career as a coach now. So yeah, in terms of career highlights, really, it's cadet and junior medals, and then also the travelling it's allowed me to do.
Just like to touch quickly on that point you made about dieting and maybe the negative effects that had on your training. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so it's one of them, mate. I used to lose too much weight, to be honest. That's the crux of it. I didn't have enough education as a young athlete, and the education that I had was from people who were not really judo players, not really understood weight control sport. And there's also like a little bit of a different sort of spin on it. Whereas now you've got people who are really looking into sports science and nutrition. Maybe that's come from the UFC and the stuff that's come from that sort of aspect. But back when we were training full time, there was a little bit of a laugh and a joke about losing weight. Like it was a cool thing to do. Do you know what I mean? Like it was pretty crazy. And when you look back at it now as a 32-year-old man, I think it's absolutely ridiculous what I was doing. I was losing like 10 kilos from a Monday to a Saturday. I mean, I remember once, I think you were there, Dave, when we fought in the British Open as a senior, and I'd weighed 81.5 kilos on the Monday night. And then I made 73 kilos by Saturday morning. And then I'd fought all day, done whatever I'd done. Probably didn't fight very well, obviously didn't medal. Got back on the scales in the evening and I was back up to 80 kilo. So I put a stone on in a day. Just gets to show like how poorly I did it. And I don't know yet the long-term health effects that's had on me. Nothing's come to the floor yet, but I'm just really passionate about when I'm working with my players now that I make sure they do it in the right way.
Yeah, we were both in that same boat together, really, because we were both losing the weight at the time. And I think it was, we found sort of strength in the fact we were both doing it together. I think if we would have been doing it on our own, it would have been a lot harder. But
yeah,
I could, the same. It took the dieting over the years to try and make 81s definitely took a toll on more my mental, I think. Physical as well to a point, definitely didn't perform as well as I possibly could have done because of, fatigue on the day due to dieting. I think the mental thing as well, like you say, for me anyway, I just started just hating the process to a point towards the end. And then when I moved up to 90s and now hundreds, much happier about going into a competition and the lead up, and you're just not stressing. I spent more time thinking about dieting than I did the actual person or like the actual competition itself.
Well, that's what I was just going to say there, Dave. That's what I was going to say. I felt like all the run up to the tournament, I wasn't bothered about the tournament at all. I didn't think I was fighting. I was preparing for the tournament. I was literally thinking about my weight. And it got to the point where I made my weight. I was like a big sigh of relief. Oh, I've done it now. But I hadn't even started the competition. Do you know what I mean? And I think that mentally, in terms of like preparing for a tournament, the physical side was after that. It was more that I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't up for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, I never failed weight once when I was like, right, I'm going to make 81s. I never failed weight once, but I definitely failed to win medals because of making that weight.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's a ridiculous thing to think, right? Because it's not exactly like we're in a competition to lose weight. We're in a competition to do judo, right? And the main focus was on a completely the wrong aspect.
And to be fair though, Dave, it wasn't the people around us that were getting us to do it either, was it? Do you know what I mean? The likes of Brian and Mike, they were like, just move up, just what you're doing, or sort your diet out properly, but we were just too into it, weren't we?
Yeah, when you're in the eye of the storm, I think it's quite difficult to see clearly what needs to be done. And because, like you say, the information we had maybe wasn't the best, and the way we sort of slipped into a routine, I think, how we went about it. And it was possibly a very negative routine. But, you just sort of be comfortable with what you know and you just carry on like that, And it was, I think, it was quite daunting, the prospect of going up to 90s. Now I look back on it, I think it would have been much easier, but hindsight's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah. 100%.
The story that pops into my mind is that, remember that time in Venray in Holland? I think you were 50 grams overweight. And I just remember you walking around.
Oh, mate, I could have sunk that fella.
50 grams over.
Spitting outside.
You're walking around outside the weighing room, spitting to try and lose 50 grams.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. You think, like, in Britain, we didn't even have scales that went down to 50 grams. And then you've also got to think that that's rounded up, isn't it? So it could have been like 25 grams that I was over. The Dutchman there, like, tell you what.
Yeah, the strict.
Could have swung for him, but it's part of the game. It's part of the game. We were playing it strict, and that's how it was. But yeah, not one of my fondest memories that one day. But yeah, funny in hindsight. But
we can laugh about it now.
I won't have any of my players doing that now.
No.
Yeah. How mad is it though? You know what I mean? But like the thing as well, at the moment I'm tutoring what they call a DICE program, the British Judo DICE program, and it's a college course, an academic course that stands for Diploma in Sport and Excellence. And there's like 22 topics in it, but one of them is nutrition. And I just kind of wish that going back to us setting out to do full-time training, we had a program similar, because when you look through the content, Dave, it's just gives you so much information that we didn't have. How to manage injuries, how to eat right, how to goal set properly. You know what I mean? And if I had that, I think that might have been a difference for me. Just having that education, that knowledge,
Yeah, I could resonate with that as well, because recently, the past couple of years, I've done the IGF Coaching Academy Level 1 and for judo. And then aside from that, more recently, I've done the Australian Strength and Conditioning Level 1 coaching. And when we were training in our early 20s, I thought I had a really good grasp of, how to train physically, a good grasp on judo and judo techniques and how they all go together. And I look back and I laugh at how sort of uneducated I actually was. And probably this past sort of 2-3 years, I've learned more about judo and strength training and how to apply it than I had in the 20 years before that of doing judo, which is ridiculous when you think about it. And like you say, hindsight's a beautiful thing. But I do wonder what the difference would have been if I'd have had this knowledge back then.
Yeah, I think it's good for judo going forward, especially in Great Britain having a course like that. I mean, if I was a young player, I'd be like making sure I get on that course. Do you know what I mean? I think it's so important to have that information before you go and train full time, look after yourself and know what you're doing. And it's like knowledge is power and all that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Now, you've mentioned a few times about the players that you coach, and I was just wondering if you could, so I'm assuming post competitions, just go into more about that and your involvement in coaching.
Yeah, so post 2012, my competitive career started to dwindle down a bit, really. I say that. I had a decent year at 81s. That was the year I moved up after the games. I moved up to 81s. But at the same time, I was doing the school's judo as part of the legacy for 2012 from Kendal. So Mike had got me to do my level 2 coaching award, and I was travelling around the local schools around Kendal. And then a bloke called Richard Wright, who was head teacher at a school in North Yorkshire, which is about 45 minutes from Kendal, got in touch with me. And he's just a mad keen martial artist. He's done taekwondo. He's well into the UFC. He's got a UFC fight pass on his phone and all that. And he got in touch with me, asked me if I would do some judo at the school. So I went down and we ended up doing 2 classes there. And he said the school would pay for it. They'd pay. So normally the kids would pay individually, but the school said that he'd said the school would pay. So that meant my classes were filled up 100%. He's like, do you want to come back next half term? I was like, of course I do. I was getting good money while I was training full time. I was paying for a lot of trips. So I've done another half term down there. And then he was like, look, there's definitely a market here for judo. You've unearthed something here. Would you open a club? And at the time, I was still doing a bit of competing. It was a little bit like, shouldn't I? It's quite a big commitment to make, really, to run a club every week in that sort of environment. But I went with it, and I've never looked back, really. And since then, we worked really well together, me and Richard, and we started opening another club at Ingleton, which is another little town up the road from Settle. And then we opened another one in Bentham, another one in Kirby Lonsdale. And before we knew it, we had four little hubs going, weekly sessions a week going on. And we started running our own tournaments and different bits like that. And just because we had the sheer numbers, we started to progress, really. And then we got, like, I don't know if it's the same with you guys, David, but because we started off from scratch, it was one of them where all the kids only learnt their judo from one another and from me. So when they did randori with one another, it wasn't really real, if you get what I mean, because you hadn't had any other external influences. So I was pretty keen on giving them other randori partners. So I went to Brian at Bacup and Luke Brown at Lee Judo Club to set up like little inter-club randori rumbles. And from there, I got invited to go on the Northwest Area Committee as a county coach. Basically, they liked the idea that I was doing and they wanted more clubs to be a part of it. And that slowly snowballed to being like a junior area coach. And we started to get all parts of the area involved in doing a similar thing, just trying to create high quality randori and bits of technical for competitive young players. And then I went on to taking the overall job in, was it 2019, something like that, I think it was. So now I'm the area manager for the Northwest. So that's like the region between Kendal and Liverpool, Manchester, and as far down as Sandbach, Stafford. So it's quite a big area. In terms of our club, once we've done that and we started working with other clubs, and I think that's really important, isn't it, for club coaches to really not be too possessive over the players and give them a chance to work with other coaches and other players and get more experiences, because ultimately that's what's going to make your club better and make the calibre of the player that you've got better. So yeah, from doing that, we ended up getting a couple of players national medals, and we've gone on to since having one boy who's on the GB heavyweight programme, and we've got a girl currently that's on the England talent development squad. So things are going well, you know what I mean? With the club, it's going well. And then obviously that just goes hand in hand with the area stuff, because, you know, since we were young, mate, we've been on the Northwest area squad all the way through, and we can sort of see the benefits of having that sort of setup. And when I first started working with my club, that wasn't there. It sort of been disappeared. So I really wanted to set that back up again, really. And I got my teeth into it and I'm really enjoying it. And hopefully at the moment we're working with England to try and set up a regional hub in the Northwest area as well, just to work with the most talented players. But yeah, everything's going well, mate. Everything's going well. The club now, because of the pandemic, and because our hubs were based in schools, an issue that we had was that we didn't know when we could get back in. We didn't know if we'd be able to get back in to the school halls to deliver the judo. And also the protocols that British Judo set out, where we had to clean the mat in between every session and stuff like that. It mean waiting around till the mat was dry before putting it away, and then I'd be putting it away on my own. Couldn't expect the parents to stay for half an hour, 45 minutes after we finished. So we started putting the wheels in motion and getting our own club, our own dojo. And that's just literally been completed last week. So, yeah, everything's really frustrating at the minute because I've got an awesome venue. I've got really eager fighters who've got real potential, and I can't do anything with them. So, yeah, I talked a bit there, Dave. Sorry, mate. I just went on a bit of a
No, that's
waffle.
fantastic. There's a few things I want to circle back to as we went through that. So, firstly, you say obviously club started to snowball, and you ended up going from obviously the 1 to the 4. How did that kind of take shape? Did you reach out to the other schools, the other areas, or did they hear what you were doing and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so what happened was, obviously, by this point, after a year of going with Settle Primary School and working with Richard, there was a real buzz around the club. And the Settle Primary School was quite an innovative primary school in that they're always trying to get the people on board and doing new things and getting the best out for their kids. And everything that's done is really publicised really well. And obviously the other head teachers will have seen what was going on. And then it was an offer really from myself and Richard. We went up to Ingleton Primary School and said, basically, would you like the same thing? Because we'd like to do more than one night a week. And we think by opening one at the next primary school up the road, that it'll obviously recruit more people into the club and also mean that we get more numbers in and potential to create better players and better sessions for everyone. So that's basically just repeated that model. We then went to Bentham Primary School and did the same. And then through one of my kids, actually, for the last one, through one of my judo players, I got a job teaching PE at a school in Kirby Lonsdale. And from that, I made inquiries with the head teacher there about doing judo and got put onto they've got a brand new state-of-the-art £1 million sports hall. It's absolutely huge, mate. You won't believe it, for the side of the town. At Queen Elizabeth School in Kirby Lonsdale. And that's where we opened a club there. So, it just snowballed really, mate, from doing the same thing, just having someone who's really passionate about judo that doesn't come from a judo background as such and was obviously high up in the school setup. We were quite lucky that we bumped into one another, really, and that's how it snowballed.
And then in terms of the programs you're running in the schools, were they during the lesson times, or were they more lunchtime or after school clubs?
So it started off in its very early stages just being like an after-school PE club, if you will, after-school judo club. It wasn't a judo club in its own right, it wasn't a community club. But after I'd done the second half term there at Settle, it was basically said, should we make a proper club of this? It wasn't going to be on jigsaw mats anymore. It was like, let's get proper mats down, let's do it properly. So we had a Friday night proper judo practice there. Then there was little bits where I'd go into the school and do a little bit of PE for them. I'd do like a 6-week block of judo. And we're trying to tag that on at the start of each academic year as well and try and get the youngest age groups in. So they get their first chance at enjoying the judo or having a go at the judo, and then they can decide whether they want to filter into the club afterwards. And that's really the model that we went with. Since then, I've done like an all-school judo day. So I'd go in for free. I won't charge the school. And I'd do judo with every single kid in the school in one day. And you should get good numbers from doing it that way as well. But it's never really been, like in terms of making a wage, it's never been a way for me to make money like a lot of other school judo providers. I see it better in the way that we have the club there and that we have partner schools that we work with to give them something different, because they've got the rugby and the football and the athletics and the rounders and all the different sports that they do within primary school settings. They're already there, but to give them judo for free and to actually then get as many kids involved in it in one day, give them a little taster, but enough of a taster for them to say, right, I'll have a go at that properly. Because I think that's where we struggle sometimes with schools providers, is that people do a half-term judo and by the end of it, they've had enough, because it goes back to the same thing as before, where you just get used to training with your mates. And then when it's a big scary stepping out of that little comfort zone and coming to a club with people who know what they're doing, it's almost like it's too scary for them. So I think by just giving them a little bit, enough for them to go, that was well cool, I want to do that again, there's more success in getting them into the club settings. Yeah,
I think that, because you mentioned that earlier where you were saying about, traveling around and, getting out of your little comfort zone and, training with other people. And that was something that was huge for, both of us when we were, young. So I think we met when we were about 11.
Yeah, it's smart, that, wasn't it?
Maybe either competed against each other or maybe on the Northwest squad when we were kids. I think that's when we met.
Yeah.
And I know you were coming down to Bacup, we were coming up to Kendal, but then we were also training at the Northwest Hub at the time. I think one time it was in Bolton for a while. And,
yeah, we
were always traveling around we're always traveling around to different clubs. And I think that's something that's one of the massive benefits in judo is the fact that it is more open.
Yeah,
I think you find a lot less people that are just trying to, keep the place to themselves. There's more of this, learn the judo, then go out and test it. Learn from other people, train with other people.
Yeah.
And I don't think that really exists in a lot of other sports.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, Dave, as well, there's a lot of clubs that won't let you do that. And it's in judo as well. Do you know what I mean? We're really open-minded to that because we've been through that system. And when you listen to people like Gemma Gibbons and people like that, when they've talked to some of the seminars that I've been a part of, and they're always really thankful to the coaches for them to let them go out and get extra training from other people without having the worry of being called for it. You know what I mean? That's massive. That's huge for me. And I think if anyone can take anything from this conversation is that let your players go. Don't be scared of them being poached and all that sort of thing. Because ultimately, if you're all on top of them all the time, they won't fulfill their potential, or they'll know what you're doing and they'll want to break free from you anyway. So yeah, that's what I'd give people listen to this. Let your players get other experiences, taking places.
I mean, that's one of those things that, I sort of took for granted because I didn't know anything else. So I remember my first competition abroad was Lugi in Sweden. And I remember you being there as well. And we did the competition, and then there was a 4-day training camp.
Yeah.
And there was like 700 kids there to train with from all around Europe.
Yeah.
And that just became the norm. You go to a competition, you do a training camp, and you'd be fighting with all the people that you potentially fought the day before with in the competition.
Yeah.
And you'd be hunting them down. And if someone beat you, you'd be trying to find them to be able to get as many randoris with them as possible.
Yeah.
And I've not got as much experience in any other sport, but, I don't hear these kinds of stories. I don't hear people that I know that, say, play field hockey that go to a field hockey competition, then play games for the rest of the week with that team. They just go back to their home and carry on playing amongst themselves. And I think it's one of the great things about judo, in my opinion, is the fact that, you go to a competition and then you train against other people you've just been competing against.
Yeah.
And it just really opens the sport up for people to learn more.
Yeah, it's that level up thing as well, isn't it? You know what I mean? I know, like, what I felt when I came back from Paris, for example. I felt like a different player when I come back from there. You're training with Olympians and world champions and European medalists and all that, and they're all on this mat and you get to fight them. You come off the mat and you feel like you've upped your game because you've been fighting with better players. And I think if you can do that at every level for the players that you're working with, you're going to give them their chance to level up as well. If you keep them in one little bubble all the time, they'll just stagnate, and they'll stagnate to the point where they get bored and they'll give up. I think it's so important to give them extra opportunities, not just to get better, but to continue the engagement with the sport. Yeah,
it's very humbling as well. It reminds you that you're not as good as you maybe think you are. You can sometimes get caught up in your little bubble, and you get carried away with yourself, and you think you're the best. And then you go on one of these training camps, and like you say, there's hundreds of other people there. Or when you go to Japan, you go there. There's a dojo with 120 people, and every one of them can smash you all over the place.
Yeah.
It reminds me. It reminds you that you're always got something to learn, and that process is never over.
Yeah, that's the thing about judo, isn't it? It's like when I talk to people like, what's competition judo like? I said, well, like tennis, where anyone can get beat by anyone. But yeah. So Andy Murray got beat by him last week, and he's like world number 58 or something, and he's got beat by world 58, Andy Murray. And that happens over 5 sets on it in the men's game. Where in a judo tournament, anyone can be beaten by anyone in a split second, can't they? You know what I mean? It only takes one moment to get thrown, or one mistake in the Waza, and it's all over. It's a brutal sport for that. And like you say, it's really humbling, but that can happen on the training mat and all sorts. You can beat everyone in your little bubble. You can step out of it. Outside of that, with someone with a different style, and your judo doesn't fit their style, no matter how good a throw you are, you can get caught by anyone. And you're really on the button with that, mate, with it being humbling, for sure.
Just like to bring it back now to what you were saying. Obviously, you've started up you've got your new club ready to go once you're able to start doing contact sport. Now, how have you found the challenge of transferring from a face-to-face coaching to Overzoom, and other platforms?
I found it quite easy, to be honest, mate. Partly because I'm quite au fait with technology anyway, but also because I felt I owed it to the players. I had that investment in them. You know, I was never going to just like walk away and just say, oh, well, it's the pandemic, so now we can't do judo, that's it. I was always going to try to do something for them. And in terms of the coaching, it's not that much different. You got to get used to you're on mute, Danny, that sort of stuff. That's I got out of that by now. But yeah, and your camera angles and all that sort of stuff. But I'm pretty au fait with it now, to be honest, Dave. And I like to think the sessions that I deliver are worthwhile as best they can be in this environment. The thing I struggle with most is probably getting the players to visualise what I'm trying to show them, because whereas other coaches might have a family member that do judo with them that they can demonstrate on, I don't have that. And my two boys are 5 and 3. I can't be throwing them around on Zoom, you know what I mean? And obviously the wife's a swimmer, definitely not a judo player, so she won't get thrown around by me. So that's probably the most difficult part, trying to get the players to visualise what I'm trying to show them. And I sort of set myself out of one box. Now I'm Tori, and then I swap it round. Now I'm Uki. And that's how I try to do it. But that's the most challenging thing. But other than that, the change has been pretty easy, but I just cannot wait to get back to proper judo.
Yeah, like you said, there's a real feel element to judo, and that cannot be demonstrated over Zoom or any other kind of video platform, in my opinion. Some things you've just got to have that, touch and experience the technique firsthand to be able to really understand the dynamics of some of the movements.
Yeah, it's a tactile element, isn't it? And Zoom's not too bad because you're not sort of threatening to do it. Like, even harder again is when we have done face-to-face judo here during the pandemic, it's been socially distanced. So I can't actually lay hands on the kids, do you know what I mean? To show them how it feels, and manual guidance and all that sort of stuff when you're showing someone a technique. And you feel like, you see how that feels, that sort of coaching philosophy. You can't do that. And that's even more difficult because you want to try and show them it, but you have to do it in a different way. So that's hard. That's hard. Yeah, no, it's difficult, mate. It's difficult. But that's the most difficult bit, because you want to just grab hold of them and show them. And then you think, well, I can't do that. How can I do it differently? It makes you really think outside the box.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know from your point of view, but for mine, being in Sydney, Australia, we went into the 3-month lockdown, but ever since of July 2020, we've been able to do full contact. But even in that short space of time, it gave me a bit of a kick up the bum to get things going in terms of the Judo Way of Life started. And that's when I started making the videos and looking at all the ways of coaching and how to present the information that I had. And do you feel as though, obviously, you can't wait to go back to face-to-face and actually being able to do full contact judo again. But do you feel as though this has sort of potentially helped your coaching in certain ways because it's made you think outside the box a little bit more?
Definitely, mate. I think using resources is massive. I mean, I've used your stuff, mate, the Judo Way of Life on the sessions, sharing videos and stuff like that from YouTube, deliver. I sort of talked about it and done it slightly before in the past, but not to the same element that I have done over the lockdown period. The other side of it as well is exactly what we're doing now, Dave. You're in Sydney, Australia, I'm in Kendal, England. I think this is something that you can definitely do going forwards. I don't know what it's like in Australia, but the masterclass scene in Great Britain is pretty constant. So there's always a player that's offering masterclasses to clubs where they'll come in and deliver a session on their favourite techniques. Talking about high-level competitors that come on and demonstrate their techniques to the kids in the club. There's definitely now, that's made it global. So, for example, we've got you, haven't we, on Thursday delivering a session for our area squad players. You wouldn't even have thought about even doing something like this pre-pandemic. But how cool is it to reconnect everyone? I think that's...
Yeah, I was talking to someone about this the other day. I was at a kids' competition at the weekend and I spoke to Kerry Katz, and she'd just done a session with, organised with Sophie Cox. Obviously who was teammates, grew up getting beaten up by Sophie. It was just great to see that from, all over in England, in Manchester, there's sessions being run with people that I know in Australia as well. And she was saying the same thing, like people on those Zoom sessions that, she'd had connections with in the past, and they'd either, lost touch or, life just carries on sometimes, and you lose touch with people, and reconnecting And like you say, that sharing of that knowledge around the world.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing for the sport.
Yeah, and also, Dave, like, you think about all the coaching courses you have to go on to for judo. It's a lot of money to pay out on hotels to go there, to the travelling costs. Why couldn't you now, if you had one sole tutor of that course, they could set up in their dojo that they're working from and cast that on a Zoom call to everyone in their dojos, and it'd just reduce the amount of costs that you're spending on keeping your CPD up. That's another part of it for me. I know there's some things you'd have to do face to face, and there's no getting around that, like examinations for your coaching qualifications, for example. But in terms of sharing ideas and knowledge, that can be done over Zoom, and we don't need to be face to face to do it in the expense of doing it. There's also the side of people want to go to them because they want to talk to one another. I get that as well. But you've got that option now, haven't you, that we didn't really think of before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be interesting once everything starts getting back up together and how all this integrates back into the system. And I think it's going to, in the long term, be a huge benefit for judo.
Yeah, I think so. It sort of brings it back down to, you know what you're missing now, don't you? Sometimes it's all been taken for granted, especially over here. We've been without judo now for, a year. I think it was a year this weekend just gone. That was the last tournament that we ran. So it's sobering. And I hope that the recovery for judo in the UK is quick. That's what I'm praying for. I hope there's no people worried about coming back to judo because of the social distancing. It's been involved. It's been part of everyone's lives for so long now. Do you know what I mean? That's the only worrying part, is that will everyone dodge judo because it's the most risky sport to come to? But then with the way the vaccine's being rolled out over here, you would say, well, there isn't any risk at all. But once everyone's been vaccinated.
Well, if we're anything to go by over here in Sydney, there was, in terms of the kids' classes, they came back pretty much full steam ahead straight away. I think the parents and also the kids were just glad to be doing something.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of that trepidation at first, but once people still got the confidence very quickly, and the kids, like you say before, the kids don't really necessarily understand fully what's going on. They just want to be active. They just want to do something. And, I think from that perspective, you'll be all right.
Yeah, I hope so. And the other side of it is like, I've had to deliver judo that isn't judo, and whether that's made some of the kids' attitudes to the sport dwindle because it's not what they enjoy. They're not doing, and now is that what they think judo is? Do you get what I mean? There's some of that as well that I'm a bit fearful for. Because when we have come back to face-to-face classes, it has been socially distanced. It's been more of an exercise class than a judo class. And the martial arts like karate and you could say boxing for under 18s, but they're not really punching one up in the face. But it's all sort of done on pads or in lines where it's all safe. I can see those sports not being affected as much as the grappling sports, particularly judo and BJJ and Olympic wrestling. I think we've probably took the hardest hit with it all. And I just hope that the kids that did come came back as socially distanced judo and then fell out with it a little bit. They see that when it does come back, it'll be back to what it was when they enjoyed it, and they've taken another leap of faith with it, really.
Yeah, well, only time will tell on that one. And all right, Dan, I think we'll wrap it up there. Really enjoyed that conversation. It was nice to have a little trip down memory lane, and we've known each other for probably over 20 years now in terms of training together, competing against each other, traveling the world, and training partners and coaching. And it's great to be able to continue.
We could write a book, mate, couldn't we? We could write a book about some of the things we've done.
The adventures. Anyway, Dan, look after yourself, mate, and all the best, and I hope everything goes all right with getting your new club up and running. And thank you for taking time to talk to me today.
No problem, mate. I've enjoyed it. Cheers, pal.